Separation anxiety is something most horse owners have experienced. And despite how common it is, it often leaves you feeling alone. Kathy Baar has spent decades studying horse behavior through the lens of psychology and herd dynamics. Her book, Solving Separation Anxiety, draws on years of observing how horses bond, how they cope, and how easily their instincts are misread. She sees this challenge not as disobedience, but as biology. And that perspective changes how you meet it.
Dear Horse World, it's Kathy Baar.
Kathy, welcome to the Dear Horse World podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because our dear friend Tick has spoken very highly of you over the years. And I'm sitting here with your book. And it's a book that was birthed from a really special time in your life. And I was hoping we could kind of kick things off by you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of things for me shifted when I had my son. It was something that I didn't think I would have kids, and I just have one, but I didn't think I'd have kids at all. Just from choice, not forced into that situation. And once he was born, it was fascinating how much things changed, just from a natural perspective. Not that I tried to change exactly, other than I read as many books as I could about it, because I like to do research and figure out what I'm about to do. I like to be a little bit over-prepared if possible. So I read a lot of books about being a mom, about what it was going to be like, the process. And like a lot of things, as soon as he was born, the thing that I learned the most was all of that intellectual information was valuable, but I had to get more connected with what was inside and what was innate and the feelings behind it. And like all the info before I felt it was useful because it made me feel more comfortable. But then once being in it and having the emotions come, like, it was just an entirely different experience. And whether it's someone else's advice that you really admire, you kind of have to just find your rhythm with it. Cool. And one of the things that was interesting for me is how much more empathy it kind of woke up in me. I could really empathize not only with my feelings of the situation, but also almost feeling his feelings. And fortunate for me, he was a very expressive baby. So anytime he was at all unhappy, he very clearly let us know, which was actually probably the best thing. Exhausting, but the best for me, because it was like in my face, no chance that he's going to be like a quiet, stoic kind of little creature. He was like, I have needs, meet them now. So we were up 20 minutes, every 20 minutes or so, feeding him and moving him, and he loved like physical contact. And we probably had those horses, you felt that some horses are really happy just kind of existing, and others like just need
to like be inside you.
Yeah. So he was very much that way. So because he was with us all the time, like we wore him, anytime I needed to take a shower, John actually, when he was 3 weeks old, John's my husband, John would wear him on one of the baby holders and ride his horse. That's the only way he could get him to nap if I wasn't there. So then he'd be riding and I'd run in and have a shower. And so from that experience, it actually triggered this realization that horses, with the separation, it's not something they're doing to us. It's not something that they're being bad or that naughty or those sorts of things.
Or dramatic.
Right. It's like this from a core being level. They have a need to be with their herd, whether it's you or whether it's the other horses. And that talking to them and telling them it's going to be okay, it doesn't affect them at all. Just like a little baby. Like you can't be like, I'm just going to lay you down here because mommy needs a break. Like that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of started it. I thought I'll just write a blog, share this information with people. Like maybe I can help people understand, because I was feeling it so strongly at that time. And then writing at night between feedings while the house was quiet, it just got bigger and bigger project. I thought, oh, it'll just be like a series of blogs. And then I was like, and then it just kind of developed into a book.
Amazing. And here it is.
Here it is.
So the book is called Solving Separation Anxiety, Over 77 Savvy Solutions for Herd-Bound Behavior. So, okay, let's start at the beginning. From a behavioral point of view, and I love that here you say in the back of the book, as I traveled the world, one common theme that comes up is herd-bound horses, also referred to as barn sour or buddy sour. This problem creates all sorts of frustrating and dangerous scenarios. Okay, so let's start with the behavior. What is going on sort of psychologically for horses when they develop separation anxiety with other horses or in other different environments? And then we'll kind of break it down, because this book is amazing. You've broken it down into sections, made it super, super straightforward, and I think really user-friendly for everyone to learn and use this book in their daily life. So let's back up and talk about the behavior itself and how it develops.
So I think that for me, that's the most important thing, is understanding that psychology level of the horses, because they are prey animals, because they're herd animals. Everything in their DNA and being tells them safety, comfort, play, food. Those needs, those vital needs for the horses get met when they're in a group, or at least with one other being. So from a DNA perspective, like, it's a really strong attraction that they have. Now, having said that, there's two sides of it. One is that it can turn into a frustration in a dangerous situation. Maybe the horses if you have two horses at the show and one has to stay back at the stall and you try to pull one away, either the one in the stall, it can start to be dangerous for that horse, or the one that you're pulling away can be dangerous. Some horses will bond really quickly. So you might be beside your friend talking about what you guys had for breakfast in the warm-up ring, and you've made like half a lap, and now your horse is like, that's my bestie. I can't leave.
I've actually seen that in lots of different disciplines.
Yes.
Just in, one over the other.
Yeah. And it can be trailering. So the challenges are real. The great thing about it, like most things in life, there's a flip side. The stronger your horse wants to bond with another horse, you can turn that and you can have that strength of bond with you as the human.
Really?
So that's the power, because your horse is looking for, where is my safety and comfort going to come from? And if you can start to provide the things your horses need, then they can be super strongly bonded with you. So if you're talking about horses that are really good at liberty, some of the most challenging, when you're playing without ropes and things, some of the most challenging horses are the ones who are super happy hanging out on their own, and they don't whinny for other horses. They don't mind when you switch stalls and those sorts of things. As a liberty horse, the challenge is, it's like, if you're not even attached to the best thing in the world, which is another horse for you, like, I'm going to be a tough sell. But if you have that innate bonding, cool, then we can go, what's important to the horse? How can I start to provide those things and set up a pattern where they can be thinking and thoughtful and partnershipy with me? And then you can have this incredible bond.
Okay, so for everyone who's listening or watching this podcast, if their horse is presenting some of this behavior, it actually is also an opportunity.
Absolutely.
To build like that kind of Disney level, like what we all dream of. My horse
loves me.
Yeah, like loves me, like wants to be with me.
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's not like you go out and you're like, hey, take this magic pill and now you shall love me. But it is a process, and I think knowing that, though, that it's a relationship, just like you'd have with a friend or a spouse. Like, you have to put the time in, and most of the time, it has to be conscious quality effort.
Okay. So let's break this. There's a great way for us to break this down. So actually, before we dive into the specific presentations of separation anxiety, if someone who's listening or watching this podcast has not experienced, they don't know what you're talking about. Like, maybe they come from a different type of discipline, or they're maybe very sport focused. And they're going, okay, Kathy, that sounds awesome. But like, what are you talking about when you talk about specific quality time to build relationship? Yeah. What are let's like paint a picture of like, what does that look like?
Yeah. In the book, I've got like a little teeter-totter that I show. So a lot of times on that teeter-totter, if you think about horse time and you think about human time, a lot of times time with human is work. We train, we get them better at their sport, we drag them to the wash rack, maybe it's only cold water.
Oh, yeah.
But work related.
Yeah.
Then the time that they get to spend with or near other horses and or the barn, they get to eat, they get to sleep, relax, nuzzle, groom each other. So we want to start to be part of those interactions that are important to them. And like I said, if we think about the horse's needs in a hierarchy, the first thing they need is safety. This is taking out breeding. So breeding kind of trumps the other stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that biological, and when you say breeding, you mean like
the hormonal drive. Okay. So that is above everything that we're talking about.
Yeah. And that I believe is true of all species.
Yes.
Like we all have this innate, to reproduce. So, okay, take the science biology away.
Yeah. So then the next need for the horses is safety.
Okay.
So the horses need to feel safe to a degree. And their safety is a little bit different than ours, and they need to feel comfortable. And their comfort's different than ours. Their comfort isn't necessarily a 12-inch foam mattress. Their comfort is comfort for what's natural for them. And I think that's one of the challenges as we move more and more into understanding horse psychology is that we don't put human psychology and what's important to humans into horses.
And that is called?
Anthropomorphic, and there's lots of words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a common one. And I definitely, I think it's really important term to mention in this podcast.
Yes. So safety and then comfort for what's important for the horses, and then play and food. And play for different horses is different. I had a really big warm blend mare, and she was playful, but not in the way that you might see like geldings playing where they like bite the face and they're rearing, but she was playful and like puzzle solving.
Oh.
So if you tied her and you used a different knot when you tied her, she would use her mouth and her nose and figure out how to untie it. She was famous for, in the stalls, she would like undo a carabiner clip, open the stall latch, slide it over, let herself out, and then go down the stall row and let her friends out.
Oh my God, she sounds amazing.
She was so many cool stories about her. One time she saved me from a bear, but she's incredible. So she was playful, but in like a really puzzle solving way.
Yeah.
And not in like a zoomy way. We had a chance to ride with Walter Zettel, who was
amazing.
And I rode that mare with Walter, and I thought, boy, this is going to feel to her like work. Like, and I had like 5 days in a row to ride with him. I'm like, I bet when I go to the pasture tomorrow, it's going to be hard.
She's going to be like, no, thank you.
Every day that I rode with him, she was closer and she would come faster to meet me at the gate. Like, she loved it. So her play was that puzzle solving and that kind of like get into it and figure it out and those sorts of things. And then you have the classic play, right? The boys usually that are like pulling your sheet off and they dump over the brush box. And if they get loose, you can tell because the barn is trashed, like they've had a party. And then food. So then we can use food as a motivator. And so also knowing that each species kind of has their own what works best in the training. So one of the challenges of using only things like clicker training or positive reinforcement only with horses is it can work, but food is the fourth thing that we talked about in their order of importance. So if a horse is experiencing a safety and comfort issue, the food is not innately for them a strong motivator. So it can be a very hard place to start to make progress.
I've actually experienced this in my own journey with positive reinforcement. If my mare is, there have been situations in which she is, I would call like, she's too anxious. She's like, I would say between yellow and red.
Yeah.
And I've had those actually sessions. And it was also very much informed by separation anxiety.
Yeah.
And Tick and I were doing a training session and she just wasn't interested in, like, her, you could tell like all the chemicals in her body were too elevated. That food was not a motivator at all.
Yeah. And exactly, the events Road to the Horse. things like that. You can see when those horses first go in those round pens and they are separated, they don't care about food and water. It's not the priority. The people who are working with them have to establish a level of safety and comfort that those horses can then get to the learning frame of mind, so that the play drive, that let's figure out a puzzle together, can wake up, and then food can be really powerful.
Wow. I've never heard it explained that way. That's so powerful. Okay. So that's a really helpful foundation to now what we're going to talk about when it comes to specific circumstances in which separation anxiety presents itself. And these are, and like in your work, you know, you work with a lot of different people. You clinic all over the country. If someone is listening or watching this podcast and they feel like they're alone in this journey, could you share a little bit of like how many instances you see of separation anxiety with horses?
Probably every day.
Really?
And having said that, it's not something that's a prescription or a solution where you go, I've solved this horse's separation anxiety. They will never be attached to another horse.
Nice.
An example, like if we travel, so we have a few horses that are really bondy, and say we're away for a week or away for 2 weeks, and they're out in the herd with their horse. And their new daily pattern is 23.9 hours a day. We are out with each other, safety, comfort, play, food, or met. We're happy. We're living the pre-animal ideal life.
Yeah.
And then we come home and we're like, hey, we want to ride at different times, and you're going to go over here and I'm going to. Then we again have to address the separation anxiety because horses are such pattern animals. They have now had 2 weeks, 14 days in a row of setting up back to bonding, which is innate for them.
Right.
So coming home, we have to take a deep breath, right? Because you come home and you're excited and you've got like all these ideas, and wherever you were, they did these amazing things and you want to try. Same thing happens to us. And then we have to take a deep breath and go, all right, let's set up these patterns again. Now, the great thing is once the horses have bonded with you, once you've gone through the process, each time you go through it, it often is faster.
Okay.
Right? So you're just reestablishing, priming the pump, if you will, right? To get it flowing again. Here we are. Remember this thing. I'm cool. I love you. You might think I'm useful. And then it flows a little bit better again. Okay. So I say every day, seriously, because even on our farm, we trap their horses. It's natural for them to bond. So it's not something that's like, if you come to our farm, you would never hear a horse whinnying. We try to minimize that. And the amount of whinnying and crying for each other for us is like a red flag on the farm of what do we need to do to set this horse up for better success so that they are not hitting this stress response when they're trying to survive in our world and with what's important for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm also just, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about my own horses on this journey, and I have so many questions because something that I didn't know until Tick explained it to me, but when horses travel together, which my two horses are doing on this vast journey that we're on, they can bond deeply with one another.
Yeah.
Can you actually explain that a little bit? Because I didn't know that horses could bond that strongly when they travel together, and that it's actually been used in situations like to bond two horses that don't get along or whatever. You just put them in a trailer and you travel, or they even sit there together.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was something that people use.
So I think about it a couple of different ways, and the great thing about horses is they're really simple. Like their needs stay the same.
Okay.
So if you think about the horse in the trailer, they find safety and comfort with each other in the trailer. We're up front, we're driving, things get uncomfortable, there's bumps, there's a fast stop, they go, something flapping goes by on the highway, and they have that prey animal response, spike up on adrenaline. As they come off of that adrenaline and the hormones and the drugs change in their body, who's with them? Who do they smell? Who do they see? Their buddy. And they're like, oh, this is where the comfort is.
Wow.
So every time that stimulus happens, they are coming down off of that adrenaline and bonding stronger and stronger, often with the one that they're beside.
Okay. That makes perfect sense.
It's like if you've ever been, in a tough situation or gone through a tough point in your life and there's somebody there with you.
Yeah, you deeply bond with them.
Yes.
Okay. Now that some people call that trauma bonding.
Right.
In people. I don't know if that's a thing in horses, but that's definitely something that now is becoming more and more conversation in human psychology.
Yeah, for sure.
So you go through a hard thing, that other person's there, or that person goes through something hard as well, or you both share that commonality. So there's like a shared experience.
Yeah. And I think with most things, there's a range, right? There's this range where it's a healthy situation.
Yeah.
And then this was too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when we started talking about codependency, which I definitely, I'm really excited to learn about this in this episode with you, because I recognize that I'm putting my horses through something that they've never been through before, which is a ton of travel and a ton of new environments. Mm-hmm. And the one common thing is me, but more than that, because they spend more time together than I could spend with them, is each other.
Yeah.
And so they'll go into all sorts of new environments, new smells, new temperatures, climates. And the one common theme in all of that is that they are together.
Yes.
So now I'm starting to really understand why there's like such a deep bond there that I'm having to now navigate as we go through all sorts of different training opportunities.
Yes.
Okay. Horses kept in the pasture in a herd. This is part 1 of this book. Let's talk a little bit about that. So how do you navigate? So let's say you've got even like a herd of horses. And is this kind of the scenario that you're describing?
Yeah, because we have students and a lot of people keep horses on their own farm, and they might not have an indoor arena. Some people don't even have an outdoor arena. Yeah. So the situation is they have maybe 2 or 3 pastures, and they use one for riding when the weather's nice, and the horses are all kept out in the herd. And even just taking this, you have to do with a little bit of safety in mind, but even sometimes just taking the horse from the herd to the other pasture to work them is too much of a stretch.
Yeah.
So we talk about, as long as your herd is safe and you're conscious of where the herd is and things, and you have that ability, the strategies where you can be in the same pasture as the herd and playing with different exercises that help your horse start to find that comfort heading away from the herd and going with you.
Okay. So what would this look like? So let's say you have, because I can think of a couple of close friends of mine who have lots of space.
Yeah.
And those horses are free roaming.
Yeah.
But maybe separating 1 or 2 might create a bit of a more stressful situation.
So in the very beginning, again, it's simple. It's comfort and work, uncomfort. Now, again, we can do everything in extremes where it's not a healthy situation. But if my horse is grazing and finding a lot of comfort with the other horses, then if I want to go from a positive perspective, I want to go, what's something that my horse and I need to get better at? Maybe they need to be better at backing. Maybe they need to be better at sideways, or stepping the hind leg under, or yielding the forehand. So if my herd is in a clump, it helps a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So I've got my clump, that's my herd. My horse is perfectly happy in the middle of the clump or on the edge of the clump.
Okay.
Right? Then we have this range that's away from there a little bit. Maybe it's 10 feet. Maybe your horse is 100 feet or 100 yards. But there's a range where they go, okay, I'm not as happy here, but I can still think about you. I can still look. I can still blink. My tail's still soft. My ears are still moving in a casual way. And then there's the distance where your horse goes, I'm not okay. You'll notice the blinking stops, the tension in the body comes out.
Head raises,
tail may raise or get rigid. The ears get rigid. So if you try to do the little floppy ear test, they are hard or stiff, or the horses don't want them touched. So that's too far.
Okay.
What we want to be is in that zone that's a little bit uncomfortable, just like us as learners.
Yeah.
But not so much that
they can't.
It is either one-time learning and it's a really negative experience, or they can't learn at all. So we want to be in that little window. So what we do is, in the very beginning, start super slow. You practice the thing you need to do anyway, whatever it is your horse needs to improve, while you're in their comfort zone where they're super happy. Then you drift out to their learning zone, and that's where if hangout time is important for your horse, that's where you hang out. If your horse loves scratches, like if it's that time of year where those flies get like right on their midline, on their belly button, and no other horses can get that spot, like you get that spot. Because then you're useful.
Yes.
You and the water trough they can get over, right? Scratch that spot if they like scratches. But remember that this time is for what's important to your horse. Some of our horses aren't into hugging and touching and face rubs.
Yeah.
We love it because we love horses. So you want to be conscious of what is a reward for this horse. So then you go to that learning zone, and that's where you eat grass or do their scratches or just hang out, so that they start to grow that comfort zone a little bit. So the idea there is that they just go, okay. And then instead of the comfort zone only being 3 inches from their buddy or their herd, then pretty soon we're 6 feet, and then we're 10 feet. The other benefit of that is now you are there with them as they're coming off of any kind of learning and coming back into this casual comfort zone. Right. So a lot of people, the horse is comfortable in the barn and the arena is a ways away and the arena has no other horses. And they think, well, I have to go to the arena to make progress with my horse. So they take the horse to the arena and the horse is already in this panic zone.
Yeah.
They can't think. And they're like, well, what do I do? You can do things just like at competitions and Road to the Horse where the horses are now in a panic zone and you have to show up anyway and help them. But there's more risk. It takes a lot more skill to be where you need to be. So if you start where the horse is comfortable, then you can really have bite-sized chunks. It keeps you and your horse a little bit safer. It helps you make sure that you're noticing where your horse is comfortable and what is important to your horse, which is part of the process, is because we're talking about having horses as partners, we want to notice what is actually important to them. Not just, well, we paid a board here, so we're going to use the arena.
Right. And I really hear you when you talk about that. Like, okay, arena means like space to work. It's like if you go into a library, you're like, this is where I read and study.
Right.
And we can actually remove that.
And horses don't do that. Like if you watch them in the pasture, they're not like, okay, this is where we drink water, so there'll be no biting, right? No kicking here. And this is where we're going to have hay, so no whinnying in the hay zone. Like everything for that. That's ridiculous, right? Like the horses. So for them, everywhere is where they interact. Everywhere is where they talk and communicate. So we have to let go of some of the rules that we set in.
Okay. That's, yeah. It's like, as you're saying that, I'm like, duh. But then I am totally guilty of being like, okay, like we have a round pen, now we're going to the round pen because that's where we do our groundwork.
Yes, or your natural, like people do that all, they're like, for years it was associated round pen, that's where you do rope work, natural horsemanship, groundwork.
Yeah. And you're basically being like, no, myth bust, number one.
And the one horse that I talked about earlier, she taught me that the most because I had some goals that I wanted to accomplish in the round pen with her, and I would take her to the round pen and we would work on the goals. She was also incredibly athletic and very self-confident. So it got to where I'd put her in the round pen, and then as soon as I got this like focus, now let's do our work, look on my face, she would just look at me, and it was the most demoralizing thing because she would jog in like a Western pleasure jog away from me to the rail, jump the round pin rail, and then stop 10 feet on the other side and graze. Like it wasn't fear. She was just like,
just uninterested.
You are really bad at this. I will leave until you figure it out. And because I was driven, I was like, no, we're going to get this better. And so then I'd try to do my off the rope work outside the ring, and then we'd go. And as soon as we headed to the round pen, she got to the point where she'd run off. So I could have her at liberty stick to me in the open space, but I couldn't do it in a round pen.
Wow.
Because I changed. So I had to change so that she perceived the round pen just like she did everywhere else. She's a good teacher. But again, like I said with my son, like it has to be a little loud and in my face.
I totally resonate with that, Kathy. I feel like the best teachers are the ones that are like, I'm sorry, there's no way that you're not going to learn this lesson.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be so loud. And like, as you're describing your Mare, I'm thinking of my Mare. And it's like, it is. She has made me feel like I do not know anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also learned more with her.
Yeah.
And it's so like humbling.
Yes.
And also like amazing at the same time. And it's like they live so close together. Feelings on a daily basis with her. Okay. The next section of this book is called Horses Kept in a Stall or a Barn. And this is really I think there's a lot of horses that live in stalls around the world. And I think that as we're talking, I do actually, like, the more I learn about horse psychology and the more I it's not that stalls are bad. They're very much a reality. Like my 2 horses are in stalls where like in Ocala right now. But it the more I learn about horse psychology and the more I learn about horses' needs, the more it changes my perspective on stalls and separating horses.
Yep.
So how does that play into all of this?
So in the stall section, we do some exercises that are actually in the stall. So if your horse is safe to be in the stall with, because like we said, starting where their comfort zone is. So if that's where they're comfortable, you can even start within the stall. So it doesn't have to be these huge maneuvers to get the result. We talk about things where you can do some games and things in the aisleway, so that you have a little bit more range, because sometimes just taking the horse out of the stall is emotional. Taking the horse out of the stall and then all the way out of the barn is too much of a trigger. So you can't always get away. So you need those tools close.
Well, and what's wild, just to dive a little bit into the horse psychology thing. So there's actually cases of, just to show how much horses establish pattern and then associate safety, there are stories of barns going up in flames.
Yes.
And those horses being taken out of the barn.
Yeah.
Clearly they're not safe. This is something clearly that's happening that's endangering everybody. And if those horses get loose, they run back into the barn, into their stall.
Yeah.
Okay. Unpack that for everybody. Because that is fascinating that I don't know if everybody is aware of that aspect of horses.
Yeah. It's one of the powers because of horses is they're such pattern animals. So you can set up patterns for them that empower them and empower you and help you reach your goals, or you can set up patterns that hinder you and make your life and theirs harder. And the pattern there, like we talked about, to go back to the safety and comfort, is that the horses found safety and comfort in the stall. So even though the barn is on fire, horses aren't logical thinkers. They are in a situation where they feel unsafe. And where have they found safety and comfort before? The stall has been their beacon of safety and comfort. So they are unsafe. They will go to the stall for the safety and the comfort. But it shows us how powerful that can be. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is we want to develop new patterns, and we want to develop confidence in 2 ways with our horses. One is that we want them to get more confident with us, where they feel like we can provide the needs and we're the leader. And the other thing we want to do is develop their self-confidence so that they can go out in the open. They can figure out how to open the gate, and hopefully not, but right? But that kind of idea.
Yeah.
That they go, there's a problem, we're out of water here, I'll open the gate and go to the water trough over there.
Yeah.
And it sounds like big thinking, but if the horses develop that self-confidence, they can start to solve these kind of puzzles. So confidence in 2 areas. One, we want their confidence to grow in us, but we also then don't want them to be so dependent on us that when we leave the stall, they're whinnying and emotional. So we also need to develop the self-confidence so that the horses that are so bonded can also exist and breathe when they're several feet away from their attached buddy.
So do you think horses are born with do you think they're born or developed as young horses with a different level of confidence, internal confidence?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that go into making up that horsenality. And I think there is stuff that is innate, that it's harder to shift, but it is a little bit influenceable. And then there's things that are environment and learning driven that are more shapeable, and we can adjust those more. So there are going to be horses that are born and their innate character and their spirit level causes them to be very self-confident. And then if their learning environment, if their environment and their learning supports that, it keeps going in that direction. If their environment and their learning goes against it, their self-confidence can go down a little bit. And then the same on the flip side, their innate character, they come out and their spirit level causes them to be very bondy, very low self-confidence. And then again, whether the environment and the learning supports that or detracts from it.
So it's very much a nature and nurture situation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can see that, like, if you've ever been around different breeds.
Yes.
The way that we've bred horses, you can see those characters coming out.
Yeah.
Right? Like the jumping horses that are bred to get out of the ground, if you tried to get them in the ground like a cutting horse, they can move, but they move in a very different style.
Yeah.
You could train it, but it's never going to look like the cutting horses. Yeah. And the cutting horses who are bred when they're a little bit uncertain that their withers drop 12 inches, it's going to be hard to teach them to pick their withers up out of situations.
Wow. Such a good example. So horses kept in a stall or barn, you have 19 specific exercises for horses kept in a stall. What do those look like? Like how is someone navigating separation anxiety in that type of environment?
Yeah. We start a little bit, there's an exercise in the beginning of the book in the theory section called Me and My Shadow. And there's one horse that taught me the most about that exercise, and we used to teach it and have students do it, and it's a great exercise to learn more about your horse. And the horse that I mentioned in the book, she was a horse that I'd known. I knew she was bred on a racehorse farm. I knew her mom, I knew her dad, so I'd known her and kind of her background. Mm-hmm. And in the situation where what we did for her is we started the Me and My Shadow in her stall. At the time, it was an open air pen down in Florida, but it's basically a stall.
Okay.
And she had her buddy beside her, and we opened the door. And in the exercise, you basically, as long as it's safe, you're with your horse with your arm over their back, and you just kind of hang out, and you shadow them, and you allow them to go where they choose. And for her, that door being open, just for experiment's sake, we took out the food and water from the pen. So food and water is on the outside, lush, lovely grass around Ocala on the outside. Mm-hmm. Her buddy is a pen down that she could go visit. With that door open, it took weeks before she chose to go through that open door.
Wow.
So she had a really strong safety and comfort were really important to her. And that's where she spent most of her life. And so for her to develop enough self-confidence to just go through the open door towards food, but it's a lower priority, towards play, towards all those things, took a long time. So the exercises start in the stall with simple things. Like if you have a stall wall that's shared with your buddy, it might be as simple as we're going to work on you yielding away from your buddy and resting on the other side of the stall. Mm. Making suggestions like maybe we make a point of hanging the hay bag on the side of the stall that's away from the buddy horse.
Yes, because feeding horses together, especially eye to eye, informs that bond.
Yep, because again, those needs are being met. And so if they're feeling safe and comfortable, their play drive's been satisfied, and now the food is part of that innate character and their needs.
That's amazing. I mean, that is so interesting when I think about it's such an awesome invitation is the word I'm looking for, to think of the stall or to think of the environment around the stall. Again, it's like you're completely dispelling any idea that only specific areas are where we work with our horses.
Yeah.
That actually every moment that we're with our horses, stall, aisleway, driveway, pasture, paddock,
it's an opportunity to communicate, and every time we're with them, they're going to be learning something. So we may as well be putting those patterns in there. The other place that I've used the stall exercises is like if you have a horse that's on rehab, and they're on stall rest.
Yeah.
As long as they don't get too dangerous.
Yeah.
You can use some of the things so that you're still helping them with that play drive or that thinking side of their brain so they don't develop unfortunate behaviors from being stuck in the stall.
Mm-hmm. Okay, horses kept in pairs or with a buddy. This is going to be a big one because I have so many questions. And this is, again, really common. Some horses are not, I think there's a lot of examples within the sports disciplines that horses may not be in a big herd. That might not be maybe possible or reasonable in those situations, but they are with a buddy or they are with a pair, in a pair. Actually, recently at WEC in Ocala, saw that there was, and this was one of the, I think, 4 or 5 star weeks, and there were 2 horses in a paddock together. So they clearly travel together, which you don't see as much at show jumping events. So why? Okay, so this is quite a specific, and I could see now, like even thinking and learning what I've learned so far in this episode, this is now we've kind of like, this is a just as challenging situation for separation anxiety.
For sure. I think one of the most important things with the pairs is that you really you're developing 2 horses at the same time, because you are trying to take one and you are leaving one.
Yeah.
So you have both. It becomes really important to develop their self-confidence.
Okay.
And to develop patterns of separation, but patterns where they find comfort away from each other.
Okay.
So this is one of the things that we utilize a lot. Like I said, when we're traveling, that we come back and then all of a sudden we have some anxiety about the horses leaving each other, is that we try to make it part of the day where the things that they really enjoy happen away from each other. And even if we're not riding that day, there's a normal part of their day where they are separated from each other. And that just becomes normal for them rather than the oddity that only occurs when we're trying to make progress or working on something that's hard for them.
Okay. So let's dive into a couple of those specific exercises. How do you do that? I'm like looking at you like, yeah. Kathy, tell me, because I'm literally going to go and apply this to my own horses.
Yeah. If you have a situation like you mentioned yours with the stall, then you can start with the stall exercises because you, not beyond a shadow of a doubt, but you're feeling like the one left in the stall is reasonably safe. So if you misjudge and you go around the corner before that horse is ready, you can kind of fix that situation before it escalates.
Okay.
The other way that you can do it is that if the buddy horse that you're trying to leave, if you both had him in the pasture together, you might leave that buddy horse with some snacks that he really likes. And you're not leaving him, right? You're doing the exercise of we're going to find where the edge of your comfort zone is, and we're going to hang out in the learning zone. Now, though, as the handler, you have to be aware of both horses.
Yeah.
Kind of emotional situation. The great thing about leaving the one with snacks that you're not attached to is when it starts to get beyond that horse's comfort zone, you're going to notice that the food has a lower priority, so they're going to leave the food.
Right.
So then you go, interesting. Today our bubble was 12 feet or 120 feet, whatever you're working with.
Yeah.
And then you can play approach and retreat with that to try to expand it.
Cool. Really cool. What are some things that you're looking for when you're wanting to progress through that? So like how do you measure when it's like how to expand the distance of separation?
Yeah. The things that you're reading are the horse's body language. So what they're telling you that they're ready for. So in the book, we go through a little bit of a chart of what does the tail look like when it's a stressful situation or not? What do the ears look like? What do the eyes look like? And you're going to find each horse kind of has their own almost like poker tell. Some horses, it's very obvious in their lips or, the tendon that runs down to the corner of their mouth. Some horses, as soon as there's a stress for those horses, that tendon kind of pops out and it almost looks like they suck in the cheeks on either side.
Oh, interesting.
Some will do like a nose snarl. Some very strong mares will like pull down their lower eyelid and it wrinkles
Yeah. We were just talking about this, I'd never thought of the muscles and the fascia underneath the eye. And now I'm going to swear it. That blew my mind this week.
And it seems like more on mares, they will have the eye look in geldings or stallions. So the important part then is to kind of become aware of all those things with your horse. And that's one of the things that you can utilize in the Me and My Shadow exercise is that you start to read these things on your horse. What is it that is my horse? What do I notice first? Is it that his tail gets tight because your arm's over him? Is it that I feel his muscles tense or the breathing changes or all of a sudden I can't see him breathing anymore? So by noticing all those things and having it just be a normal thing to notice, then it becomes much easier to go, oh, we're a few steps too far. Or, oh, I see that you're upset, but let's see if we can hang in here a few more minutes.
So for everyone who's listening or watching this episode and they're saying, Kathy, but everything I do with my horse, I'm riding.
Yeah.
Like I'm in the saddle. That's what I think of when I think of developing whatever it is that I want to develop with my horse. What would you say to those riders or those horse owners who are kind of going, well, what am I going to do 10 feet away from my horse's buddy?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think everything starts with understanding the psychology, because that's going to give you the tools to approach and the skills to approach things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And then we also have a section in the book that's specifically for written exercises.
Oh, cool.
So again, like if you're new to this and you're like, that sounds great and I understand, but I have no idea what that looks like in practice.
Yeah.
You just skip to that section and you're like, okay, step 1, 2, 3, I'll do that.
Okay.
And then there's a group of exercises there until you go, oh, I kind of get the gist of where this is going. I bet I could now fill in a little bit and expand my imagination.
Okay. Where would also like, because some of these situations that we're talking about, like horses in a pasture, for example, and maybe someone who's listening is like, well, actually, maybe this would be an opportunity for me to do a little bit of groundwork, but they've never done it. What's like step 1, 2, and 3 that they can think about? Now, I know they'll get a lot more information when they dive into the book, and which everybody will be including all the information for Kathy's book in the show notes. What does that look like? Because there's a lot of people in the horse world that are like completely and totally obsessed and in love and impassioned by groundwork. And then there's also a lot who don't know what it is or might be a little uncertain as to like how to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you think about with your horse, if we try to keep it super simple on the ground, even people who are doing amazing things with horses, basically they're asking him to go right or left or forwards or backwards.
Right.
Right? So those are, most of us have some degree of being able to do that on the ground.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like for you. So then if you go, well, my horse is not as good turning right off my leg, or maybe my turn on the haunches to the left is not as strong as it could be. Then you go, well, I'm going to use this ground skill time to get that better. So where does my leg go? What kind of pressure do I use with my leg? What kind of pressure do I use with my hand that I can simulate on the ground to ask for, and then have be the release even when my horse is pointed away from his buddy, so that it can start that small. And I feel like if you're really using, I don't want people to feel like they have to do groundwork for the sake of doing groundwork, because then there's no purpose, right? But everything you're doing with your horse, how is this going to help? What is this building towards? So that we become really conscious and we're not just going through the motions. So then if you're using your ground skills to help something else that needs improving in your riding anyway, then you feel better about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you feel more purpose-driven about it. And it's supporting the thing that you need to get better in the saddle anyway.
What are some examples of things that you can do on the ground that totally inform what you're doing in the saddle?
I think the biggest, probably 3 things. Some horses are really affected by outside stimulus, noise, somebody else using a whip, a fence falling down, those kinds of things. So if your horse is really affected by that, then have that be the basis of stimulation that you use with your horse in the groundwork. So when he's with his buddy, maybe he's really bothered by somebody clapping. So then he's next to his buddy, you might practice applause, or you might pull up applause on your phone. And then we drift away from our buddy and the applause goes away.
Cool.
Or something that I just rehomed, an idea that I rehomed from someone, Ben Atkinson. He said the best thing he's ever found to get horses used to applause is the little cheap tambourines that you can pick up that make all that clappy noise.
Yeah.
So if that was an issue, you might just get yourself a tambourine, and when he's with his buddy horse, you make a little bit of a jingle, and when he relaxes a little bit, you guys drift a few feet away. So that if it's a stimulus thing that you go, this is the biggest challenge for this horse, is that he gets overstimulated by his external environment, then use that.
Okay.
If you go, the biggest issue with this horse is like, there are not spurs and a stick strong enough to move him off my leg, then on the ground, you're going to play with things that help your horse understand that yielding away from pressure from your leg or your rein is where the release is.
Oh. And I think that's a really powerful one.
Yes.
Because we have seen a lot of patterning in the horse world. Speaking of patterns, we've seen a lot of human patterning of, okay, this horse is really strong. I'm going to add a bigger bit.
Yeah.
This horse is not moving off my leg. I'm going to add bigger spurs.
You could just teach them.
What a thought. Right? But we need to understand how horses learn.
Right.
in order to take a couple steps back and reestablish a different pattern with pressure.
Yes.
Because horses can learn to bear that big bit or brace against that big spur.
Yeah.
And then I would say that there are lots of examples of how that can just continue to snowball.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me that doesn't necessarily go down a particularly productive path.
Right.
So can we give ourselves, there are so many beautiful horsemanship tools now available, both in written and in audio and in video form, that show us how groundwork communication can re-establish the pattern around pressure.
It doesn't just have to be a man's horse.
What do you mean by that?
So I think one of the things that I hear a lot is whether it's bigger bit or bigger spurs, then pretty soon, well, it's a man's horse because you need to be stronger to ride him, to hold him together, to move him off your leg, or those sorts of things. And so we get a little bit on the flip side too. The horse has gone that direction.
Yeah.
And we'll even hear, well, he doesn't like cowboys.
He doesn't like
cowboys because the horse has had trouble. And then someone said, well, send him to a cowboy or send him to a man or someone who's strong and can handle it.
Right.
And then he goes that way and something, perhaps not always, but something unfortunate can happen.
Yeah.
And they go, he doesn't like cowboys. The thing is with the horses, it's not usually that they have a fear of cowboy hats or boots, but it's the behavior that's associated with that person. So the horses will always drift away from predatory behavior. And not that cowboys are predatory, but there is this kind of thought, just like getting somebody to ride your horse to start a horse that's younger, right? Because they bounce better. There's these kind of stigmas that go with different types of people.
Absolutely.
And
the world is full of archetypes.
Right. So it's not that those horses that we've experienced anyway have ever had any trouble with John, who's my husband, who wears a cowboy hat.
Right.
Right. But the behavior that comes from the individual is what bothers those horses.
And which can establish a pattern.
Mm-hmm. So then the same thing with like this horse needs to be a man's horse because they're stronger and they can hold them and they're bigger. Or we could teach the horse how to yield and be soft and understand that that's important. Because their innate character teaches them to push into pressure. If you're a prey animal and you yield from pressure, you will get eaten.
Right.
Right? But if you're a prey animal and something grabs you and you push through it, you might survive to live another day. You might survive to have a baby. You might have 10 babies. And then those babies are going to survive by pushing through pressure, not by being careful and yielding and being soft. And when something grabs you, just yielding to it and giving in. So there again, just like separation anxiety, we're working with a thing that's not natural for the horses. It's not their innate character to yield from pressure.
Right.
So we, as their coaches, as their mentors, as their partners, we need to help them learn what's important for survival in our world so that we can be partners more easily.
Amazing. The next section is called riding with a buddy horse. What does that look like to you? Because when I read that, I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So lots of people go out on trail rides with a buddy or with a friend.
Yeah.
You might go to a show and stable next to a friend of yours and then go to the warm up together because your ride times are close.
Okay.
And then those horses get really bonded and we don't even realize it because we're chatting about, the new boots we got or whatever. And then your coach is like, okay, go jump. And your horse does not want to leave. Or the one that gets left is now emotional and worried and concerned. So that's where it is. And even for people who trail ride, those horses might spend a couple hours on the trail together traveling, and then maybe one person needs to ride off or one person wants to keep riding and the other needs a break back at the trailer. So it's kind of to help those situations and make sure that what happens in those situations is because our horses are looking for leaders, we're busy talking. And we actually disconnect a little bit from our horses as their leader.
Yeah. Well, because we're not present with them. We're present with the other person.
And so in the absence of us showing up, they will solve the problem. I need a leader. I need a herd. This other horse will be my herd. And then we're ready and we go, let's go. And they go, who are you? Like, you haven't been here.
Yeah.
I've been here with my buddy.
Yeah.
Like, you're just this passenger that's hoofing along. So a lot of it is, even in those situations when you're with buddies, keeping 49 to 51% of your brain on, this is my primary relationship. This is what I'm here to do. This is who I'm with. And then this is extra, which is awesome.
I'm like just thinking about I'm thinking about all the moments that I've been in presence with my horses, but I've been like on my phone, or I've been thinking about work, or I've been doing a phone call, and they're just like, then there's nothing for them to attach to.
Yeah.
Because I'm not present with them.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And it happens even in the most honest way. Like, if I'm on a horse and I'm teaching, because I'm going to be really trying to be present for the student or helping them through a problem or keeping them safe, that my horse kind of has to fill in a little bit in those moments. Mm-hmm. And then if I need to pick them up, there needs to be like a moment or two, just like when you see a spouse or a friend, where you like reconnect, whether it's a hug or a rub or whatever, and you're like, or just eye contact with that person. There needs to be a moment with that horse where you're like, okay, I'm back. So it's not that I want you to think that it's not just one way, right? Our horses still need to be able to be our partners. Mm-hmm. And we need to be able to shift our focus, because that's the reality of life. But then coming back, there has to be a few moments of, hey, I'm with you again, and a little bid of a reconnect and kind of a attention on that. And then we can go together.
It also makes me think of we've had Will Coleman in the studio, we've had Ann Krasinski. When both Will and Tick talked about working with Ann Krasinski, who's one of our masterclass instructors, she's such an icon, she's amazing. One of the things that they both said about her separately, unprompted, was when Anne gets on her horses and when she's in the saddle, she is 110% focused on that horse. And when she sits in the saddle as she mounts, both men will say, you'll never see her on a phone. You'll never see her, like, she is 110% focused on that horse. And I do think it is, when I heard that, I remember thinking, I do think that's a really cool invitation for all of us to think of, it's not like we're riding our horses for an excessive amount of time. Like for most of us, that ride time is actually like a sliver or a fraction compared to all the other things that you're doing in your day. Mm-hmm. What would it look like? Like, what a cool experiment to see, like, what would it look like if your ridden time was completely devoted and focused and present. Like, what would that do to your relationship with your horse?
I think then when you're like that and that's the reality of your riding, then the riding becomes almost like a meditation because of the level of focus and the connection. And then I think there is the other side, though, where some, like the clinicians and stuff, they might be, or the people who are checking fence on hundreds of thousands, they might be on their horse for 8 to 10 hours.
Yes, totally.
And that level of connection for 8 to 10 hours is exhausting. So like, you both need a brain break, right? Like they need to be able to sometimes have their responsibilities, maintain gait, maintain direction, look where you're going.
Yeah.
And we need to just be like, and in our own space.
Yeah.
But then having that, like, okay, now we're reconnecting. Hey, buddy, here we come together again.
What are some things that you do for that reconnection moment? Do you have like a go-to?
First, I fix me.
What do you mean?
Right? So whether I got distracted on purpose or not, because sometimes it can be like be out on a hack and I do accidentally get distracted. Like I go out with the intention of being focused. Then I'm like, oh, there's a hawk. Right? And then I'm like, oh, I wonder how they flap. Remember that one time I saw the 2 hawks? And then I'm like, God, and all of a sudden I'll go, oh, right. So then I get my brain kind of back in the game. Yeah. And then sometimes, particularly with the horses I've been around for longer, it can and it's mostly for me, I'll just like reach down and give them a rub, and just that like physical connection of that touch, like deep breath. And now here we are again together. Mm. The younger horses takes more, because in that time that I got distracted, they also got distracted. Mm-hmm. So when you're both like butterfly, you have to like a little bit more, something needs to happen to get the attention back.
Cut it. So that sounds like to me, when I hear that, it's a lot of intention behind what you're doing. It's not just like, you're not just going through the actions. It's like, what's the energy and the thought behind it?
Yeah.
So cool. Because that's what horses feel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So riding with a buddy horse, what are some, and I think this is going to like kind of beautifully segue into emergency strategies and exercises, because someone might get this book and they're at a horse show and their horse is exhibiting a ton of separation anxiety.
Yeah.
And they're like, Kathy, I don't have weeks and weeks and weeks to establish the learning, what do you call it? The learning zone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have opportunities to sort of like play within the vicinity. So what do I do if I'm at a horse show and my horse is really clearly bonded with a horse at that event, and I've paid to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paid for these classes. Maybe my trainer's getting frustrated with me. I'm getting frustrated with me. Then I'm getting frustrated with my horse. You know, the snowball effect.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Yeah. In that situation, it becomes more management.
Okay.
So there's less learning and really establishing positive patterns. And your first concern is safety for both of you, right? And then from there, you're trying to catch their attention and manage the situation. Now, if you're really skilled, you can still turn it into a positive learning environment. We mentioned like these public demonstrations and stuff where the horses start way up in the panic zone. And usually the really great people are able to bring them back to the learning zone and maybe even get them like totally in the comfort zone in that space. So if you have enough skill, you can absolutely do it. Most of it, though, safety first and then managing the situation. And the horses, what helps our horses get more focused is our ability to direct their feet. So that we create motion and then we direct the motion.
Okay.
And horses will get more relaxed. They'll work off of adrenaline with that type of strategy. So sometimes you might use simple patterns like a figure eight.
Okay.
A lot of people will use a circle, putting the horses in shapes like shoulders in, things that help put a little bit of bend through their body so that they can start to use their lungs. They can start to breathe again and blink and think. So it becomes more management. And it can be learning, but for most people in that situation, it'll be management.
Because for horses, movement is very important, right? Psychologically, what does movement do for horses?
It helps them get rid of that adrenaline. Now, we also have two different learners, right? We have more of the extroverted learner as a horse and the introverted learner as a horse. And what that looks like specifically as a learner is you'll notice, like if you just took licking and chewing to be a gauge of thinking, there's a lot of theory, but we'll take that. The extroverted horses generally will lick and chew while their feet are in motion.
Okay.
And
Extroverted.
Yeah.
And it's still will lick and chew.
Yes. So they need motion for their brain to work.
Okay.
The introverted horses often need a pause in the motion for their brain to work.
Cool.
So they need to stop to be able to think about what just happened. And what can happen for those horses is that often skilled, bold, confident riders stay in motion, and the horses never have an opportunity to think about what just happened. And that happens for people too, right? Like the introverted person a lot of times will be in a social situation, and to figure out what the heck just happened or what somebody said, they need quiet time to review the conversation and figure out what just happened. Whereas the extroverts like learning on the go, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, and then more, and let's go with the flow. And they're learning and processing as they go. And if you ask them to hold still, like in a schoolroom, in a desk, like the learning shuts off.
Yeah.
Because that's not how they can learn.
It's literally, I'm listening to you and I'm like thinking of myself as the sort of active learner. And then you were talking about how when you were writing your book, or was a blog that became a book, you needed that quiet time to then really get your thoughts and ideas down on paper.
Yeah.
So this really, to me, drives home also the importance of understanding how our own how our own preferences and behavior is arriving at the situation, especially in these moments, and then also what our horses' individual needs are based on the behavior that they're demonstrating for us.
For sure. And our horses need us to be able to adjust in the moment. So if you're an introverted person who has to stop to think, but your horse is a horse who needs you to be like, and then this, and then this, you might be the person who at home, you need to come up with strategy 1, 2, and 3.
Ooh.
And rehearse those mentally so that in the moment your horse is like, you're so creative. You can really think of on the spot. And you're like, I had to prepare for it. Thank you. And when you're out of ideas, then you put them away and you're like, now I need to go prepare for my next section so I can appear spontaneous.
Very cool. Now, what about the opposite? So what if you have an extroverted person who is very needs to learn on the go, and then the horse needs a pause?
You need to come up with something to do while you're giving your horse a pause. Okay. Cool. You can go, and it's going to feel like forever. And if you have a watch, you're going to go, okay, today, when my horse has done something good, I'm going to wait for 60 seconds before I ask again. And you might have to start the timer. Now, if you're a really extrovert person and you start the timer, you're going to be like 59, 59 and a half, 50. It's going to feel like forever.
Yeah.
So you start your timer and then you're like, okay, I'm going to check Facebook. All right, I'll answer these texts. Because would it be better if you were present with your horse? Absolutely. But being present with your horse and going did he think yet? Is it 60 seconds yet? Are you feeling comfortable yet? Are you better?
I can feel the tension in that.
It's too much.
Yeah.
A lot of our energy comes out of our core. So for those type of horses, even if you just shift and now you're yelling at the herd, you're energetically yelling at someone else, your horse gets the chance to not feel that pressure from you. It's at least aimed somewhere else. That alone, what you're going to find with those introverted horses is point your energetic bullhorn to something else. And often you'll see that that introverted horse will immediately go. You just see them melt. The other thing that'll happen is sometimes those introverted horses, they're going to be close to us because that's where we want them, or it's obedience, or that's where they feel like they're supposed to be. Sometimes on those horses, if you back them an arm's length away and put your belly button, their entire posture changes. Because it's just some people are much more comfortable with a table between us chatting, and others could be in this booth with me turned face to face, and it's great. Yeah. And holding hand, touching. Other people are could we have a bigger table?
That's so interesting. I can really imagine. And also, I think the world is also is really pushing us down a direction of being more active, more engaged. What are you doing? You're just sitting there doing nothing? What's wrong with you? There's so much to do. So I think we also have to think of all the environmental influences on us in the current state of society, and how that really doesn't mentor us for presence. So that too thinks of as someone who has to practice presence. It is really exciting because I feel if you're an extroverted person and even you have an introverted horse, it does also give you the opportunity to then practice maybe within that period of time, okay, can I meditate for 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Can you actively meditate for 30 seconds? Can you think about your energy? Can you, those are actually awesome opportunities to develop that skill set and develop a pattern that will benefit your own horsemanship.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. This has been really exciting to unpack with you, because I think a lot of us need this book is like a manual, like a guidebook in a lot of ways. And I love that you've gone really specific to something that you see so consistently. So as we wrap up, is there any other takeaways or little messages that you would like, because there's going to be a lot of people listening to this episode that are experiencing one of these 5 things within as it presents as separation anxiety with their horses. And again, everybody reminding you that kindly bringing up that separation anxiety can present as barn sour. Actually, maybe you could explain that a little bit, that barn sour or buddy sour, these terms have been used to describe separation anxiety. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So the feeling, it can be different things. It can be obvious, your horse sees their friend and they scream for their friend.
Right.
It can also be that the horses that are hard to leave the barn but would want to run back. That would be the same horse where if you turn them loose, they would run back to the barn. So that feeling, and it's such an interesting thing because people say barn sour, but the problem is they're barn sweet.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I was just thinking. I was like, is that not contradictory?
It totally is. The barn is where they want to be because that's where their needs are being met. Yeah. So I think if there was something to think about going forward, even if you just listened to this and tried to make a change, is how can you create the environment you want your horse to be comfortable in? how can you bring their needs into that environment and meet their needs there? So how can you cause the thing that's important to you, the arena, the dressage ring, the jump ring, to be where your horse finds safety, comfort, play, and food?
And in that order.
Yes.
Safety 1, comfort 2, what's the play as 3, and food
as the last.
And the last one.
Now, some horses are going to be super self-confident. You're like, my horse is always good to eat. That's awesome. It means they don't spend a lot of time in the safety comfort. But you may not be, you may be able to tap into the play more to kind of enhance that relationship with that horse.
Amazing. So to end every episode, fun part, we do a sequence of rapid fire questions that I'm very excited to hear and to
Okay.
If you could read, this is kind of funny. If you could read one book to the horse world, what would it be?
The first book, okay, if it's the first book I thought of, it would be the Pirelli Natural Horsemanship book that Western Horsemanship put out a gajillion years ago.
Yeah.
And the reason that I picked that is for me, discovering Pirelli is what was a huge turning point in my life. Before that, I had done some racehorses. I was trying to do competition. I was feeling frustration with myself towards the horses, feeling like the things that weren't going right because they were doing them to me, taking them personally and those sorts of things. And that helped my thinking go down an entirely different road.
Yeah, it's a really cool book. It's a very, I found when I've got it as well. And it's a very impressive breakdown of everything. It's, again, similar to like talking about like a guidebook. Like there's incredible breakdown of all the facets of horsemanship, which I really appreciate.
So that was the first one.
Okay. Who is the most iconic horse in history?
It's totally personal. Nobody else will know. But for me, it's that big mare that I was telling you about.
What was her name?
Chloe. Because she's taught me so much, like the best teacher that I've ever had. And for me, she was at such a point in my life that it was kind of transition, growing. Yeah. So for me, it was her. But that doesn't really help other people because they don't know. Write a book about it.
But I think it's also important. There have been lots of different answers to this question.
Yeah.
And I think what it always displays to me is that horses, the individual horse that the rest of the horse world may never know, can have profound impact on an individual. That truly those horses, they may never have a book. You might write a book about her, but they may never have a book written about them. But that doesn't mean that they're not significant.
Yeah. And that's what's so powerful about the horses, isn't it? Like it's each person's journey with them that makes them so special.
Yeah. Most undervalued skill as a rider?
Understanding the horse.
What do you mean by that?
I think there are a lot of riders who are excellent at bringing out athleticism in horses and understanding the horses from a physical perspective, like light years beyond what I would probably understand about the horses. I think there aren't enough people who understand what's really important to their horse and know what the horse's perspective is on the situation.
Who is the greatest horseman or horsewoman in history?
Probably people we don't know.
Why do you say that? Because you're not the first to say that.
Yeah, because I think the greatest horsemen are probably there for the horse, which in and of itself probably means they're not, or probably along with that means they're not great at making themselves public. So I think we probably don't know them. I would say the people that come to mind for me that I think started this newest evolution is kind of around Tom Dorrance, Bill Dorrance, the people who influenced Ray Hunt. I feels like they were kind of the beginning of this snowball that started to shift the horse world.
And final question, and I'm actually very interested to hear your answer. I have a feeling I might know it, but I might not. Mares, stallions, or geldings?
If I had to pick one and only have them.
Yeah.
I really like a good gelding dude.
Yeah?
I love them. They make me laugh. I feel like my mares have taught me a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just wanted to go and have fun, I really like geldings. It's my 3 main guys right now are all geldings.
Yeah.
If you asked me 10 years ago when I had mainly mares, it'd probably be mares.
Well, and isn't that the fun part about all this is it can change depending on your current present moment in time, what you're focusing on, what you're prioritizing.
Yeah. I think mares are fascinating. I think at this point in my life, I want to have some fun.
Yeah, I hear that. I really hear that. Kathy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely.
I learned so much.
Thanks for having me.